Hello, innovators, and welcome to another episode of the Heitland Show, where I connect the dots of innovation and entrepreneurship with my guests. Today's guest is the founder of Automation Wolf. He helps busy CEOs to scale their business leveraging invisible automated marketing funnels. Matthew and I talk about personal branding, LinkedIn, the power of relationships, and building communities. He shares how he helps busy CEOs to build a system for success. Please welcome to the show Matthew Hunt. Hello, Matthew. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Looking forward to learn from you. Before we go into personal branding, relationship management, and community building, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what is your story?
So I guess I started my entrepreneurship journey probably 15 plus years ago, and I'm on my third agency. So I built one and exited in 2014, and then built another one, exited that in 2018, and here I am on the third one, which focuses on personal branding, specifically LinkedIn, and we work with busy CEOs and founders by helping them create all of their personal branding content in an hour and a half per month.
So, what is it about LinkedIn? Tell me more.
Sure. So I think LinkedIn is, as most people know, is the professional network for social media, and it's a fantastic place to be if you want to build a moat around your career. So I think everybody needs to be there. But really important if you happen to be in a business that sells to other businesses.
Yeah. I hear this a lot that like there are people, and I've had people on the show as well. They're saying like, yeah, LinkedIn is important, but yeah, I'm not spending too much time on that as I'm posting once a month. What is your perspective on that? When you kind of you want to get your business moving forward?
Yeah, well, I think that posting once a day is sort of a minimum mandatory requirement for any social media network if you're serious about it. And I think that LinkedIn's a great way to create leverage for yourself and for your brand because it allows you to, find some leverage to do some one to many touch points, So even just posting once a day to your existing network where people know you and probably already know, like, and trust you keeps you top of mind. And when you're top of mind, it sends you more referrals. It creates more opportunities. It allows you to practice your communication skills and your message. It also allows you to reach people not just externally, but internally. Like your team is watching you and you think you're spending a lot of time with your team, but often you're not spending as much time as you actually think you are. And so this is another great way to repeat yourself and re-educate and communicate the message internally as well too. So it creates continuity for your business, both externally and sometimes more importantly internally.
Yeah. You talked about branding. So if you work with an executive, like a new person reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, I'm not sure about my personal brand. I have no idea." How would you get started with someone taking them through your program and helping them?
Yeah, that's 99.9% of all our clients are in that situation. And even the ones who think they figured it out, often once they work with us realize, "Oh, I don't really have this figured it out," but we help that really quickly. So the first month when we work with people, we actually spend about 6 or 7 hours with them. And some of the important stuff that we do is these 3 1-hour go to market workshops that we do together. This is where we ask them a lot of questions in some frameworks and methodology to be able to get their IP out of their head on paper. And so, one exercise that we'll do is we'll figure out what their signature system is. And you'd be surprised at how many people don't actually have one documented. And so, the signature system is just simply, what are your 3 pillars to your process? And then what are the 3 steps after each pillar? So, usually everybody has some sort of foundation pillar, and there's some sort of like automation or delivery pillar, and there's some sort of transformation pillar. So for ours it's short form, long form, controlled form, and then there'll be some sort of simple steps afterwards. Basically, you need to be able to explain what it is that you do, the transformation that you do it, and in 5 minutes or less. A confused mind never buys. So if you can't articulate that really well. Now, the other thing that we do is we focus a lot of time on who they're speaking to, So if you don't know who you're speaking to and you're not really specific about it, it doesn't stand out. And it also doesn't, it doesn't attract the right people and it doesn't repel the wrong people. And so we get really, really specific about who is your ICP, which just stands for ideal client profile or customer profile. And we go much further than the simple demographics. So it's not about like age and their job title and other things. What we spend a lot of time on is something called an empathy mapper. And this is, if you can picture four quadrants on a piece of paper, kind of like the Eisenhower matrix, and you would have sort of, you'd have frustrations and wants in the top two quadrants, and then you'd have fears and aspirations. And we want to go through and think about what is it that these individuals are going through, because we want to be able to describe their problems and their dreams of where they want to go better than they can describe themselves. And when you do that, you're able to instantly hook them and speak to the heart or speak to the gut or speak to the funny bone. And that's how you instantly build trust.
Yeah. If we take this, so from a personal branding perspective, I've had a lot of people who are saying it's like, no, I don't brand myself. I put my company into the foreground. Um, how do you work with this specifically early on? So there's a CEO of a company, let's say 5 people, coming to you and starting to work with you, like you said, understanding the different pillars and then going into the empathy mapping, understanding who their ideal client might be. How do you then look at it from a branding perspective to say, hey, this is the company you have built out where you have employees working, and this is you as the CEO, as the owner of this business?
Yeah, well, people follow people in general, and they're very close together. So, for example, you have Elon Musk, who has 50 million followers on social media, but then he has Tesla as one of his company, has 10 million followers. So they work interchangeable. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a company brand, but generally speaking, the personal brand is what's leading it. And we can go through example after example. You can look at Bill Gates and Microsoft. You can look at Richard Branson and all his companies. You can look at even like, Oprah, as this has been around since day one, but then there's also Haro Productions, right? So this is nothing new.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people have some hangups or limiting beliefs on different reasons why they don't want to build a personal brand, but they really go hand in hand. And I'll give you an example, even from my own personal example. So I had started out my career with a personal brand. I actually started it on YouTube, is how I launched my first agency. And within just months of posting on YouTube back in 2010, I was getting clients, and me talking about how we help people, and it wasn't about me. So it's just like any good speaker, you don't make it about yourself. You make it about the audience you're speaking to, about educating them and helping them and creating transformation for them. The byproduct is you end up building a personal brand at the same time, right? It's still about the company, but that YouTube channel launched my business, and then I stopped doing it because I got so busy, which was a bit of a mistake. And then it led into a second company, which was successful. And I worked behind the scenes as well too. But then I exited that company, and I hadn't been doing any personal branding for a number of years. And when I decided to start the third one, I was like, oh damn, it was a lot harder to do it because I didn't have that momentum there. And so what I say is choose an audience or a community that you can live with for a long period of time. And if you own the trust and the relationships with that audience and community, you literally have a license to print money, because businesses and things that you're interested come and go over a period of time. But if you can tap them. So my audience is the B2B audience. If I get more specific, it's probably an agency audience or a coach and consultant type audience or B2B SaaS, but I can live there for a long time and do a lot of different things. And if I own the personal brand, I literally can just spin a new company whenever I want. So you look at other people who are doing this today, like Gary Vee and others, they're not focused on building marketing teams. They're focused on building media companies.
Yeah.
And part of building a media company is around your personal brand.
I like this specifically because I love this thinking like an ecosystem. It's not like one specific thing. And if you do this well from a personal branding perspective, then it helps you to say, today I'm kind of focusing more on these things, and tomorrow I can leverage the same brand for other things.
Yeah.
What I like about what you said as well, your personal example, going to my example, coming from very large corporate, in the large corporate world, it's kind of you're not focusing at all at your personal brand, and I see a lot of people who are doing a mistake or not utilizing that. Let's say it like this, where you're kind of representing this big guy, huge companies, not human, huge companies, um, where you're not expressing your opinion, you're not expressing yourself. Though that I see a couple of good examples who are just being themselves and representing the brand, but you see it's themselves. And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of listeners of this podcast come from the corporate world, and I think it's time to say, hey, who are you and who do you want to represent and what do you represent for yourself going forward?
Totally. And if you really want to moat around your career, build a personal brand,
Yeah,
it's very unlikely you'll ever get fired or laid off if your brand is big enough. And it usually ladders up to many more other opportunities because you're showcasing continuously how smart you are, right? And so it's hard to tell from a resume or past history. We want to hire people not based on experience, but based on success. So even just documenting your successes, giving sneak peeks behind the scenes, or even making yourself seem like a 3D person. Like at the end of the day, we buy from people that we know, like, and trust.
yeah,
Well, they can't trust you if they don't like you, right? So even just documenting and being a normal person, being likable, and they can't like you if they don't know you. Well,
yeah.
knowing you is being consistent, and it goes in that order.
Yeah, love that. So taking this to the next level, there's extremely a lot of noise out there. So I talked to a person the other day, says like, why should I post at all? Why should I do put myself out there? Because nobody will see me. What would be your counter argument to that?
So look, everybody starts from somewhere, and the great news is it compounds as you do more of it. And one, you'll get better, right? And what's great about doing a personal brand in social media is that the feedback loop is so quick. So this is a great way to get feedback to improve. Anything that makes you a more effective communicator is going to benefit you in your career, and doing it publicly will force you to get that feedback loop very, very quickly. Now, the great thing about LinkedIn is you don't have to have, like, beat the algorithm, or you don't need to have a big following. You already have a network of your own. And generally speaking, the content first is shown to your first connections. Of course, LinkedIn cares about what LinkedIn cares about, which is keeping people on LinkedIn as long as possible and returning them back. So you have to understand the agenda of that at the end of the day. So the agenda, again, to do that is you need to speak to your ideal audience. Now, sometimes what happens is some people have great content, but little engagement, or it's not working really well. And the core reason is they actually are just connected to the wrong people. They actually have a connection problem, an audience problem. And a great way to test it, if you're not sure, is just put a little bit of money behind paid ads, because you can target the exact audience you want. And if they don't engage the way you expect with your content ads, and this is not like a direct response ad to buy something, this is literally your content, your Snapple content, then you may not be creating good content. But if they do, then you go, oh, I have great content. The challenge is I just have the wrong audience. I'm connected to the wrong people. So you might need to go and remove connections or start connecting with other people to grow your network online. And anytime you grow your network, you're really, tapping into what's called the network effect. And this is how every big company's ever grown.
Yeah,
They all leverage something called Metcalfe's law or Reed's law. And it's really powerful because you can get into other communities doing this and tapping into other people's audiences and that network. And so it just makes life a lot easier once things get going, which you'd never be able to do on your own. It creates immense leverage. Like, just imagine if you could clone yourself, and so you can make 4 versions of yourself, because that's what it would take to work 24/7. And that person didn't take sick days. There was no vacations. There was nothing else that was there. And it didn't really cost you much to do that. Or even if you paid someone else, like, for example, the average person invests about 3 grand a month with us with the various different things we do. But if you just only the content creation would be $2,100 a month, US dollars, very reasonable. Well, wouldn't you hire 4 people at 40 grand per year to amplify your message and reach more to your existing team as well as external sources or your existing clients? Like, extremely powerful. It's silly. It's almost irresponsible of you not to invest in that and do that. It doesn't matter if you do it on your own, you get your team to help you, but the point is you have to stay consistent. The reason why you usually want to outsource it in general is because most people suffer from the cobbler's kids go with no shoes syndrome, which means they're just so busy doing other things in their business they don't get a chance to take care of their own personal brand, their own business. And so sometimes contract, it's like going to the gym. You can get a membership, doesn't mean you're going to show up. But generally speaking, if you hire a personal trainer, then you're kind of accountable to someone else.
Mm.
And then the personal trainer like really makes you stay focused on the thing you just need to stay focused on, and you're out. One of the great things about our services is not only, you only need to go to the gym once a month, but it looks like you're going to the gym every single day.
Yeah. I like the consistency part. How do you see that from a time horizon? Because I mean, we're living in a time where it's like instant feedback, instant everything.
Hmm.
But a personal brand, like you mentioned, or at least related to already a little bit, is like it's a growing thing. It's compounding. There are still people out there who are saying it's like they try it for 2 weeks and then it's like no, it's not working. How do you see
Sure.
that?
Yeah, well, of course, like anything, you have to be committed to it for a long period of time. And how you make the decision of whether you're going to be committed to it is a couple things. One, is it the lead domino to other things? And then two, will it compound over time? I mean,
Mm.
this is why Einstein said, those that understand compound interest, right, earn it. Those that don't, pay it. And so this is just like investing or wealth. It's not timing the market, it's time in the market. So you're going to have
Yeah.
to get over the fact that it's a long time horizon and that it's a commitment, just like anything worthwhile doing in your life. It needs to become a routine, regular thing that you do all the time. Now, one of the things that our clients do with the content too, when we set them up for success, is the way we record it, because it's tied to like their signature system and what's going on. They're actually writing their first book. They can actually take this content and turn it into email drip emails. It can turn into sales enablement. It can turn into internal training. It can do so many things. When you do it well, it really becomes that lead domino that knocks down all the other dominoes. So again, it can be really beneficial. It's not just to create a personal brand, just the fact of documenting and practicing your communication skills is huge. If you're a more effective communicator, you're going to be a better leader. You're
Mm.
going to be able to communicate better to your existing clients and customers. You're going to definitely attract more. And the only way that you do that is through consistency and a feedback loop, both with a coach as well as publicly.
Yeah. What I like about that and your approach is you basically help the people to build the system. So it's not just, hey, I'm getting a personal brand. It's like the personal brand fits in this and is the leading factor of that. And that's how you utilize all of that. Um,
Correct.
which, in my experience, working with a couple of startups out there, that's the biggest problem people have because they don't have a system and nobody, let's say, in a formal educational perspective, nobody's teaching that system.
Yeah, totally.
So how do you help if we go a little deeper, how do you help people understanding the different components of their system and how to utilize people like yourself and your team in helping them to get there faster? Because that's for me an interesting point to say, okay, I have no idea. I'm leaving a big corporate job. If you take my example years back, I'm leaving a corporate job, I'm starting all over and I start from zero. How do you help someone to say, okay, let's put you on rails, let's get you into the gym, like you said, and get you on the track that you're faster there than if you would do it on your own?
Sure, it's like anything. Like, how do you eat an elephant? It's just
Yeah.
one bite at a time, right? You just one step in front of the other. If you're feeling overwhelmed, don't look at the end goal way up there. Just look at the next step in front of you. It's just like if you've had kids, you'll learn, you'll watch that first they learn how to sit up, and then they do the bum scoot, and then they, start standing and climbing along furniture, and then they do the little drunk walk, and the next thing you know, they're running back and forth. And before you know it, they're doing backflips off the shed in the backyard, and you're like, whoa, 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 slow down, stop, no more parkour. You're going to kill someone or kill yourself, right? So it's a process, and it takes time. I think the most important thing is just to get started and stay committed to it. And as long as you believe in the concept that, with practice and rehearsal, you'll get better. The great thing about the stuff that we do with people is a lot of it's in private to begin with, and editing is your friend. on video and things like this, and we can take out any of the mess that's there. It's kind of like what Jim Quick says.
Mm.
He always says, he has a saying that he says, generally speaking, people get rewarded publicly for what they practice privately.
Yeah.
And so, you have to sort of just accept that fact, and accept the fact that personal branding is not going anywhere. And the sooner you get to it, the better you get to it, because you need time in the market. You're not trying to time the market. It's not about going viral. It's if anything, it's even just about collecting your thoughts. I mean, even if it was just for you privately, like, just imagine the legacy that you could leave on your thoughts to even just your kids or something like that, that would be out there. It's quite magical. And now there's a lot of imposter syndrome, like, why me? That's really where it comes from. It's a
Mm.
lot of weird fears
Yeah.
that tend to come up, which is totally normal. Everybody has this. It's really a confidence and fear thing that's sneaking in, or it's a limiting belief that they don't have the time to do it, or there's all these other things. But it's like anything. When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? Right now.
Yeah.
So just get started. And it's okay to have not all the answers and have the unknowns. A lot of times clients come in to start doing this, that they have all kinds of different ideas of what it is or what it'll do. And really, the epiphanies are very different for each person and happen completely different. I think the magic actually is just learning how to practice your craft of being a more effective communicator. Just the fact that you have a book time, that you're going to do this once a month, that it only takes up an hour and a half, and you get so many different feedback loops, because you get the one in the session, then you get the one in post that you can see before it goes live, then it goes live, then you see the feedback from it, then you can look at the analytics, and in between there, you've had time to marinate before you do the next session. And so our clients, like, after 3-4 sessions, become almost like media trained. They'd be ready to sit down on the 6 o'clock news and be able to build out their sound bites and speak in sound bites, which is just another way of saying you're a more effective communicator at the end of the day. You're just polished.
Yeah. Love that. If we go towards relationship, for me, coming from the large corporate, if you work inside of a large corporation, there's nothing more important than understanding the internal power structures and knowing who is doing what and so on. When I stepped out, I was not in the relationship boundaries and understanding how I use my personal brand and drive the business through relationship, because I have never done this myself. What is your perspective and the importance in your view on relationship building when you start out and when you start a business?
Well, relationships have always been what makes people make decisions at the end of the day, and as well as, like, fear of missing out, especially big corporations, generally speaking, are risk adverse in
Mm.
general, right? That's why you have the saying of no one ever got fired for hiring IBM, or today it'd be no one got fired for implementing Salesforce, right? Even though that may not be the best answer, but it's about being risk adverse. And yes, there's politics in organizations, and I think that anytime you can own the relationships, you're going to protect your career. So even when it comes to, like, personal branding, it doesn't need to even be about you. So sometimes, to take the pressure off, one of the best things to do is interview other people, like a podcast like this instead. And what this ends up changing from, instead of being the talent, you become the talent scout. But the talent scouts are the anchor to everything. They become the host of the party, of the community, and they end up leveraging the laws of transference. So if you even, like, take examples like big brands, like, let's just say Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan, even Oprah, like, what are these individuals experts of? Pretty much
Yeah.
nothing. But what are they really good at doing? Finding other experts to interview. And you can do this internally in your organization and bring more value. That doesn't take a lot of time. And what ends up happening is these experts come and go, but you're the anchor.
Yeah.
And so everybody remembers you, and all their expertise gets transferred to you, and you get to tap into their authority and their audience. So I call it OPA, other people's authority, other people's audiences, right? And when you do that, that's very, very powerful. Also, when you listen to people and you interview them, it feeds the ego. And when we listen to people, if you ever read the book, how to influence and win friends, or something like that, I can't remember what it is exactly. I think it's Dale. Carnegie. I think it is. I can't remember exactly. But one of the first lessons of the book is be interested in other individuals, right?
Yeah.
Lead with empathy, right? And when you do that, that's how you build relationships. And even if you notice internally, the ones you have relationships with, is because you tend to be around them more. You'll go for lunches, you'll go for walks, you'll do coffee together. Even at a big corporation, this whole work from home thing is awesome. I like it. I run a remote organization, but I guarantee you, if you're an organization that's split, and let's say, we're coming into this looming recession right now, right? That's coming.
Mm.
And what's going to happen in the recession? There's going to be layoffs. Those that go to the office and have lunch with their managers and their bosses more often are going to be more top of mind. And the
Phew.
reason the people who are remote, who are
Yeah.
not, who's going to be easier to lay off at the end of the day? Someone you don't see every day, or someone you see every day and you have lunch with, right? Even if the person who's remote is more productive, it doesn't matter. That's not how we get rewarded in life. We get rewarded in life by how much we like other individuals
Yeah.
and the relationship there. And so you can leverage all this personal branding and this type of stuff to, again, like I said, as an analogy before, to build a moat around your career. And so these relationships are important, including communities. This is why we love communities. Birds of a feather flock together, right? We want to, and if it's a secret society, it feels even better, right? We're an insider, right? And that's where deals get struck. And it's always been like that. It doesn't matter if it's the yacht club, the ski club, the supper club. It doesn't matter if you're into, a type of car like Mustangs. But if you hang out with all the guys who do Mustangs and you do day tours where you all drive your Mustangs or your Ford 1969 Mustangs, and one of them happens to, be in this business and that business, you guys don't even know anything about business each other, and you end up doing business or getting hired that way. It's not,
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the work very often. It really has to do with how we feel about each other, because people don't remember what you said. We always just remember how you made us feel. And we want to be around people who make us feel good.
Yeah, that's so true. What is your perspective on building a community or just being part of a community when you run a business?
I think both are great. So you can mine a lot of great communities just by participating. And so a lot of times commenting and participating publicly is key, which gives you leverage. The mistake people make is they do it privately, and that's a one-to-one conversation. And there
Mm.
is a time for that. But generally speaking, if you can focus your, the 80-20 rule, 80% of your communication publicly, then other people can see it. And it gives you a one-to-many relationship building or selling opportunity, as long as you're helping others, right? It's not a beat my chest, come buy my stuff opportunity. It's a time to pay it forward and be helpful and speak from your experience. And so the best way to do it is, instead of telling people what to do, is show them what you did or share your experience. Like, when this happened, and be open about those mistakes. Hey, we had this mistake or this terrible thing happen. Here's how we solved it. It might work for you, right? That's a great way of doing it. But if you say, hey, do this, you're going to come across as like a know-it-all. Now, if you're not, that's a great way of doing it. Mining communities, you can meet lots of different communities, and you get the leverage and tap into the network effect as well too. But of course, owning the community becomes a real asset, like an actual sellable asset. People sell these communities,
Mm.
and it creates a lot more power. However, it requires a lot of energy to do it, right? And so, again, you must be committed. And again, it's one of these things that you must have a long time horizon before you see your return on investment that way, right?
Yeah.
And you have to look at return on investment in two ways. So most people are only looking at ROI on things. They always, what's the ROI on this? And that's not really the problem or the obstacle most of them have. What they really have is an ROT problem, return on time. And when they really busy people who are successful, they have their biggest problem is time. And time is a non-renewable resource. And that's really what they should be asking most of the time. How does this amplify me and myself and my personal brand and my company and other stuff based on time? We all have the same 24/7 hours, each week. And it's how you use them. Because how does Elon Musk run, so many companies, and it's just one dude? Well, he is better at managing his time and getting a return on his time. He is not thinking about ROI.
Yeah. And the example of Warren Buffett is always that he is basically nothing in his calendar. He's protecting his time as much as possible.
Absolutely. Thinking is hard.
Yeah. And
And
I
then if
think,
you are going to do something, is it the lead domino? And then is that effort, what is the impact, and how does it multiply me? Because generally speaking, if you are an A player who gets things done, you can't be trading your time for dollars. You have to think about, how do I amplify? Even as a founder and CEO, who's usually the best salesperson? It's them. So instead of hiring, 5 salespeople, a lot of times you could chop it down to one if you just multiplied yourself.
Yeah, agree. And I like the community aspect. And if we stick to Joe Rogan, what you mentioned, there, I listened to an interview of him the other day where he was explaining the first 4 year didn't there was nothing. I mean, he was building basically his community, but it was like nothing compared to today.
Yeah.
But I think that's also talking about time. It's having the patience of doubling down and using the compounding interest, understanding that it's not going to go viral, like you mentioned already, tomorrow,
Even if
and
it
not being
never
frustrated.
does, even if it never does, it doesn't. Who cares? I mean,
Exactly.
even if you look at Joe Rogan, if you watch his first stuff, he didn't know how to be a host. He didn't know how to interview. He was terrible. He openly admits it too. Go back and watch his first few episodes, and then watch, how he interviews now. And basically, he just got really deeply curious. He does a lot of research on the guests, and he really, really wants to understand and learn, and he brings up challenging, uncomfortable conversations a lot of the time, right? But when he started out, it was just all about shits and giggles and weird stuff to be funny about. Wasn't a very good host, had a lot of opinions, didn't ask a lot of the right questions, was unprepared, and so I think that it's a journey, and everybody's journey is a little bit different, and people are starting at different times. But if you stick with it and you have that feedback loop both privately and publicly, generally speaking, you're going to get better. Right?
Yeah.
And you can't have the same expectations because you may have a different, agenda, a different goal. Your goals are different than my goals, and so forth. But the point is, like, are you committed to learning and growing as an individual? Are you committed to building your network? Are you committed to building deeper relationships with people? Are you committed to creating leverage? Are you committed to becoming a more effective communicator? If the answer is all yes, then this is the right thing to do. You don't have to get it right every single time. You just need to trend correctly in the right direction, and each thing builds upon itself. And we as human beings are greatly flawed. Like, in general, we overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but greatly underestimate what we can do in a decade. And I think I heard that initially from Tony Robbins, but I think he borrowed it from Bill Gates. But I don't know the full lineage of it,
Yeah.
but the point is, it's very, very true, And again, this comes down to time horizons, And I can't tell you how many times I thought I was gonna be like a millionaire, rich, or sell the company for $1 gazillion way sooner than it ever took. It always took much, much longer than I ever thought it would in my head. Everything takes longer. And as I get older, the one thing I'm getting better at is patience and lowering the expectations for myself so that there's like not that so much of that emotional roller coaster. This is why as people get older, they become more stoic, right? In general, they just have more experience and they realize, okay, like, things are not going to go as planned, but how will I deal with it when it doesn't go as planned? And how will I still stay committed to the journey even though it doesn't go as planned? And sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't, but that's not the point. The journey's the best part anyways. Like,
It
once
is.
you get to the arrival stage, you just want to do it all over again anyways.
And I think
That's why most
that's an
entrepreneurs
important.
who sell their business, sorry, that's why most entrepreneurs who sell their business are extremely depressed afterwards. And all they want to do is start another one.
Exactly. So taking this, putting yourself out there is also, specifically in the beginning, I hear this all the time. It's like, now I can't publish this. This is not perfect. I want to be seen as the expert. Now I know you have a perspective on experts and gurus as well, but what would you tell someone who is starting out, and how do you give them the confidence in saying, start doing it, getting out there, put yourself out there, and do that on a continuous basis, like you said?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, making it less about yourself is a good way to start. Or if you're nervous, just start with interviewing. The pressure comes off, right? Because you just have
Mm,
to ask questions. And I think that everybody has something to share. They just don't think it's so valuable. Sometimes you need to work with a partner who can pull these things out of your head like us, that can find those nuggets of gold because you have them, but you just think that maybe they're not useful. And just remember, anytime you're a little bit ahead of someone else, you can pull them forward. And generally speaking, the best people to influence you is when they're only a little bit ahead of you. Like, me trying to learn from like Elon Musk is just like way too much of a gap, right? But me learning from a guy who's just built like a $10 million company or $100 million company, that's closer. But someone who's doing $1 billion, like it wouldn't be helpful. His advice or her advice would not be useful to me at this time. So sometimes you just need someone just a little bit ahead of you. And so your job as well too is to send the elevator down and pull someone else forward. And we can just keep building off of each other's successes or standing on each other's shoulders. Like, this is why I always say I stand on the shoulders of giants. Like, I've never had an original idea in my life.
Hmm.
I'm a lifelong student, and will always be. And I like working with other people who are too. And there's stuff that I can pay forward. I learn from someone else, and then I can teach to someone else, and it gets paid forward that way, right? So
Yeah.
I just think of it that way instead of thinking about it as like it's about you or your business growth. Like, get a deeper mission. I mean, the reality is, at the end of the day, like, we're all going to end up in the same place, 6 feet under, right? So you might as well just have a little bit of fun, be helpful. No one lied on their deathbed wishing that they worked more. So, make it something that's fun. It's just like exercise. Like, you're not going to do your exercise if you don't find it fun. So find something that you enjoy doing, and then you're more likely to be successful with it.
Yeah, and at least in my experience, you're way more authentic with it
Yeah, totally.
because
People know when you're not being yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
straight
Yeah,
away.
we can tell. We human beings are very smart. We've had to, do this to be able to survive the thousands of years that we've been around. This is why so much language is communicated not even through words, just body language. Like, we're looking at your face, your eyes, the ticks you make, the slightest movement. We can tell when something's off, or that you're lying, or you're selling us a bunch of baloney, right? So we know, humans know. Their gut always tells them the right answer in general. Now, that do we always follow what our gut tells us? That's a different story. you know, but generally speaking, we know.
Yeah, I have experienced that with our daughter the other day, who is 4, and the kids are very open on this, and they have
Yeah,
way better sense than we have because we try to suppress it. You straight away know when she don't like someone. It's like, okay.
totally. Totally. Yeah. Kids and dogs, right? If they fear someone or don't like someone, there's probably something that's up in general, right? Or some
Yeah,
sort of energy that's coming off of them that's not quite right. Not to get too woo woo, but
it's true.
absolutely. And I see my kids too, even with social media, for them, building a personal brand won't be an issue because they've been doing it since day one. It's just baked into the program between Instagram and TikTok and
Yeah,
Snapchat and YouTube. Like, they already all make their own YouTube videos. Like, they don't even think it's weird to create tutorials or teach or create stuff that's educational or entertainment wise. Like, they get it. It's just people who are older like me, Gen X and boomers, even the millennials kind of get it, but there's some of them that have some hangups. But generally speaking, for the younger generation, this is a non-issue. This will just be everyday normal stuff.
yeah. Let's get into the last part of the podcast where I'm asking a couple of questions, kind of
Okay.
not related, but maybe related to the
Okay.
context.
Sure.
If you could work with a project that is impacting every human being on Earth, what project would you decide to work with and why?
Oh, I think I'm kind of doing it now. I get to work with so many interesting people who are trying to do interesting things. So I've never met an entrepreneur who isn't a learner, doesn't have the growth mindset. And so that's who I get to work with every day, is really busy people who are doing really fun things. And I get to help them amplify their message, which is usually it's not usually, it always is a positive message at the end of the day. They're trying to make impact in some way in the world for better. They found a problem, they figured out how to solve that problem better, and now they're trying to help others do it. So I really, really enjoy what I do, and I think what we're doing provides major impact. And I am a firm believer in capitalism, and I believe that entrepreneurs solve all the problems of the world. And if you want something fixed that's broken, just give it to an entrepreneur, and they will solve that problem.
That's a good one. So, what advice would you give to a young innovator slash entrepreneur who is starting out?
So the big thing probably is simplify as much as possible. And seek to pay people who have already done it successfully ahead of you, because success leaves footprints, and that will help you grow faster. And I would also give them the advice that, invest in your people as much as possible. All companies are made of people, and without people, it doesn't work or run. And so, really investing in that as well too is really important. So that'd be a few things I would recommend.
What is a future topic that interests you?
Oh, geez, I'm just interested in so many different things. If you saw my YouTube channel, like playlists, and it's just all over the map. But something that interests me a lot the last couple of years that I've been really interested in is macroeconomics, and I don't talk about it, but I study it a lot on the side,
Mm.
and I just really enjoy thinking at that really larger level. And so I think it's partly as well too, as I'm starting to move out of more of those operator type roles and really truly into more of a leadership type role in the companies. And so I've always been really in the weeds, and I'm just thinking more on how to manage things and see things and spot trends. And I think I've always had a superpower for it. I just didn't necessarily act on it in the same way, but I think I'm ready in my life to start acting on those those macro trends.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, especially
Most
with the
people think it's
COVID
a
stuff.
snooze fest. My kids think like this is the most boring thing in the world. My wife says the same thing. I kind of converted my wife a little bit into being a little bit more interested in it. But I think it's interesting, especially as a global world today. So we have all these little micro industries and sub industries and cities and verticals, and but generally speaking, like, we're so interconnected that if you're going to run a business or do anything today, you really need to understand the global trends of where things are going, and you can spot them at a macro level. You
Yeah.
can spot them going up and spot them going down. It's really clear. So if you can get the trend right and just jump on the trend and take the action right, you can do some pretty amazing things.
Yeah, and looping that back to building a personal brand and or slash business, is you basically can today start building a global business straight away. You don't need to say, okay, I'm just servicing my neighborhood.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. Well, even if you have nothing and you think that you might want to do something one day, having a personal brand is great. It's just having trust with a community of people. But you can always go to those group of people because they trust you and ask them what is it that you guys want, and they'll tell you,
Yeah.
and then you can go and create it. And or even better, like even the last business I did, that's what I did. That's how I created this one. I said, what do you want? And then I said, okay, I created the idea on paper. I had no website, no nothing. I went back to him. I said, here's the idea. You told me you want this. If you give me money, I'll go build it. It's going to be beta and it's going to be sloppy, but the benefit is it'll take care of the problem. And people gave me money. I got like 20 clients like this with like
Yeah.
with like nothing, right? And the secret word was beta, and so they knew that it was not going to be perfect, and they knew they were getting a bit massive discount because of that. And it it spun out a business, right? So without any funding or loans, without having to build a website, without having to do all these things that people think that they need to get going. They think they need to register a corporation. They think they need a business card. They think they need to do all these things. No, you don't. You just need to, this is the power of having a bit of a community behind you, and you can just ask them what they're looking for, find the common thread, fix that problem better than anybody else, and then you can sell it for a premium. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Matthew, how can people reach out to you and where can people find you?
Yeah, there's only two places on purpose. So you can either go to LinkedIn, it's the only place I'm active socially, and just Google Matthew Hunt, or you can go to automationwolf.com. It's spelled exactly the way it sounds. And there's a one-page website on purpose. You can do one of two things: watch the video that's there, or get in touch with me. Ideally, watch the video and then get in touch with me if it makes sense. But that's it.
Yeah. And for everyone listening or watching this, you should watch the video. I've done it today for preparation. So, but I will not tell what is in it. Matthew, thank you very much for being on the show. It was a pleasure. I learned a lot and looking forward to send some people into your direction. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. You will find the links and resources in the show notes of this episode. If you would like to support the podcast, the most impactful thing you can do is subscribing to the show on any of the podcasting platforms and give me a review. This will help me to reach more innovators around the world and bring some of you into the show. If you have any question to the guest or want to engage with me, feel free to reach out to me on social media and contact me there.